Hello and welcome to episode number 10 of the CoinSec podcast. The CoinSec podcast is a podcast about cryptocurrency and blockchain technologies with a focus on securing them. Today, we are only down one person. Last week, if you listen to last week's episode, it was just me and Ralph. I think the week before that, it was we were missing Ralph. Now this week, we're missing Steve. So you today, for episode number 10, you've got myself, Bo Bullock. I am joined with the ever amazing, can't say enough good things about him, Mike Felch. What's up, Mike?
How's it going?
Not too bad, dude. And then next in line, we've also got Ralph May. How's it going, Ralph?
It's going good. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. You guys, we got quite a bit of news this week. We were discussing if we would go about doing like an informational section this week, but I think we kind of concluded that there was enough news to fill up a solid hour's worth of conversation around just the news this week. Some interesting things definitely happened.
Oh, we're going to talk your guys' ear off about it.
Yes.
Yes, let's do that.
Cool. All right. So before jumping into the news, let's do our weekly cryptocurrency value discussion. Currently, the markets are sitting at around $332 billion in total market cap. So today is March 22nd of 2018. That number, $332 billion, is exactly the same as we were last week. But I don't know about you guys, but it's been feeling quite like a bear market this whole week to me. Even though we technically are like kind of back where we were last week, it just feels sad.
Yes, I am upset I didn't make 200% profit last week, but I think I'll be okay.
So, I looked back at like the very first episode we filmed, and the value back then in January of this year was 735 billion. So,
sure, 400
billion less in a couple months, which is,
we're down a little bit of money, but it'll be okay.
It'll be okay.
It's long term, right? If we think about it, every week I'm supposed to make 100% profit. This is not possible. I don't know. It just the money it's fluxing around, but we're still up over year after year.
Oh, for sure,
large percentages. So if you're a long-term holder, right, then I think you probably feel okay.
Yeah, I think there was some FUD around Binance this morning specifically. There were some reactions to some news that regulators were going to ban. It's basically the largest cryptocurrency exchange out there right now, and I think that was kind of like a bit of a downturn this morning. But since the actual president of Binance came out and said on Twitter, he's like, I have no idea what they're talking about. Like, that's not true. I think they kind of bounced back a bit.
Pump and dump.
Yeah. So
seems like
Bitcoin's sitting at $86.50, $8,650. Ethereum's at $535, and Ripple is at 65 cents. Those numbers.
Wasn't it at $1? I don't. Is that really? Is it less than $1?
Ripple? Yeah, it's been under $1 for a bit now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you remember.
I'm so desensitized to it. I guess I just remember it was $1.
Yeah. Hey, dude, Bitcoin's under 10,000, man. I don't know if you heard.
Yeah. No. I guess. Yeah. Welcome to today. Sorry, I'm here.
It's going to be interesting looking back on some of these numbers in a few months. Could be drastically different.
Episode 345. Yeah, it's like $50,000 today. Yeah, man, that's crazy. It's pretty low.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm upset. Yeah.
Right. So with the values, there's not a whole lot I can really say there. I haven't really seen much in terms of things that are driving the prices over the last week specifically. It's just been kind of a stale, stagnant kind of week. So
you guys tell me, when are the GPUs going to become cheaper? I'm just waiting. I mean, how much further does it have to go down? Do we need a $5,000 Bitcoin? What is it going to take, guys?
seriously, so what you're saying is you haven't started mining yet.
Yeah, exactly. I mined long ago when they were 50 Bitcoins a block. Haha,
Right.
That's right.
Seriously. Back when your whole backyard was orange groves and, like a pack of gum costs a nickel, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, that was it. That was, yep. And my computer was a calculator. But no, I just keep looking every day. I'm like, man, these graphics cards, somebody's got to be like, this is a dumb move, and then sells them to me. But
do you have like alerts and stuff set up for that?
I do.
You're ready, man. You're ready to buy some graphics cards. Do you have like a specific threshold you're looking for in terms of price?
Gosh, MSRP, is that like a threshold?
Oh, yeah, I've been on that for a while, dude.
I know. That's why I'm disappointed.
Even, this is like a little bit off topic. Well, I guess it's not really off topic because we're going to be talking about the specific thing in a little bit, but the hardware wallets, the prices of those have gone up quite a bit too. Even direct from vendors.
If you could find them, it seems like they're always sold out.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I think everything cryptocurrency related is pretty hot right now in terms of pricing, right?
I haven't even looked at like the wallet because I already have one. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, for example, the Ledger Nano S, back in like I think I have to say like November-ish. I bought a Ledger back then, and I think it was around like the 60-ish price range. And I think from their site, like I'll go look real quick, but last time I looked it was like 70 direct, and then online they're going for like $100, $200 easy, like eBay. And we'll talk about the dangers of buying a hardware wallet in a bit, which I know Ralph has some different thoughts about that, but we'll get into that momentarily.
They're emotional opinions.
Opinions. Yeah, I mean, to your point though, I mean, like when will the graphics processing units start to go down in price? I don't know that they will anytime soon. I mean, especially as cryptocurrency continues to rise. I mean, over the long term, right? I mean, in general, right now we're kind of in a lull, right? We're kind of in a dip, but over the next few months, I am fairly confident that the market's going to return to higher values, and we're going to see more and more people still wanting to mine coins. And
so what you're telling me is they're not going down. Like I just pay the extortion. Is that the message I'm getting?
Well, all right. So I guess it depends on what your plan is, right? Because there's a couple ways to go about looking at it, right? Like you could go about it as the viewpoint of, I want to mine at today's most profitable value and then cash out, which currently that will be a kind of a bad plan because everything like is very cheap in terms of coins that you can mine, and they're harder to mine. So to give you an example, like I could basically mine like, I don't know, like maybe like $1/3 worth than I could like a month ago today. Does that make sense? Like, so like a month ago,
Sure.
I was mining like 3 times dollar wise what I was today at today's values. So, you could look at it from that viewpoint, like you want to go and just mine and then cash out. Whereas the other viewpoint is like, hey, I want to go mine just a bunch of random things and then hold them. And then when the market returns, those values will be higher and I will have technically made a better ROI on it.
Sure.
Like that's kind of what I've been doing. Like I don't typically mine for like today's worth just because I don't know, like I did that before, and I kind of feel like at this point in the game, there's so many unique little coins out there that like you can go grab some that maybe not everyone's looking at, and then I don't know, hold them and then just see what happens. Which I mean, you could hit some bad coins there, like and not make any profit off of them, but there's always potential there for some pretty interesting gains.
Sure. I mean, technically, the build that I'm envisioning would be dual purpose, so it wouldn't be just for mining cryptocurrencies nonstop to try to turn a profit. So
cracking the passwords.
Oh yeah,
cracking the hash.
That was my entire pitch.
Justification to the what?
Yeah, that's what you told. Yeah. This is for work, babe.
Seriously.
No, I need this. Okay, you don't understand. All the other kids have it. I don't have it. I need it.
Yeah, so for those
crack faster.
Yeah, for anyone listening who has no idea what we're talking about, the three of us are penetration testers, red teamers. We do security assessments for companies, and not only within tests that we're working on, but in other realms of this whole world that we work in. Like, for example, there's these things called CTFs, capture the flag contest, or if we're doing some sort of simulated hacking challenge, there's a lot of times that we are in need of insane cracking power to help us further our cause. And having more GPUs increases hash power. So one of the more popular cracking softwares out there, Hashcat, easily can utilize a number of GPUs to quickly expedite the number of hashes that you're cracking per second. And this is why Ralph and I, the primary reason we are looking at building rigs is mainly, like I said, I'm not that interested in I'm not that worried, I guess, about making a full ROI on it, because I know I'm going to use it for a lot of other things. And, there's some other fun things to do too, like getting some of the dumps that have happened. So for example, take LinkedIn dump, right? Which was made publicly available. Go and, crack all those passwords. And now you have a huge new list of passwords to use for cracking other passwords.
Oh yeah, those word lists get real big.
Oh yes.
So for any listener who's wondering, most of the time, all the passwords that I personally recover are from word lists as opposed to brute force attacks. So going A, B, B, so on and so forth, can be kind of futile. But getting really good word lists, that's probably most of the success that I have. So.
Yeah, you know what? I have the 1.4 billion user password dump that's been cracked already. That was leaked a while back, and it's been really cool because when we're on an engagement, I'll just grep it for the customer's domain name, and I'll have lots of the passwords for their users, and obviously they're using them on other sites, social networks, or whatever. But one of the cool things that I've been doing is sorting it by the frequency that the password was used, and then finding, the help desk just so happens to reset their password using that password, and they reused that password.
Or my favorite is when you figure out what their initial password is, welcome 123 or whatever it may be. You're like, woo, got this one. Let's try that password.
I just thought of something. This is probably a great time to throw this out there. So if you're a listener and you are in a position where you're in need of having your Bitcoin wallet password cracked, we might be able to help you out there.
Yeah. We can crack the wallet.
Oh, we've done it before.
And we've got rigs.
We have rigs, and we have the process kind of down now. So, if in all seriousness, we can come to some sort of agreement on, hashing time versus how much percentage gets, kind of paid towards us, that kind of thing. But hey, hit us up over email.
Yeah. Come to us before you go to Reddit.
Yes.
Yeah. There's sharks out there.
Seriously, they'll just steal
friends.
We have reputation on the line.
Yeah. We want to tell your story on the show.
All right. I think it's time to jump into the news, guys.
Okay, sweet.
So the first two stories for this week kind of go hand in hand. And I know Ralph and I are about to get into some sort of, I won't say heated discussion, but we're going to get into a discussion about something interesting here. And so these first two stories are basically kind of an amazing tale of a 15-year-old kid who found some pretty amazing vulnerabilities in the two leading hardware wallets that are out there. So the Ledger hardware wallet and the Trezor hardware wallet. So Salim is his name, Salim Rashid. He's 15 years old. And I guess let's talk about the Ledger vulnerability first, or series of vulnerabilities, because I think they kind of were a bit more critical than the ones that he found in Trezor. So the Ledger Nano S, basically the gist of what the problem was is that in addition to this secure element, the CPU or the processor that was on the device, there's a secondary non-secure microcontroller that acts basically as a proxy between the secure piece and the like display, the buttons, the USB interface. And so that non-secure processor interfaces with the secure element, which actually stores your private keys. So he found that you could kind of modify the firmware that was running on that non-secure piece to do things, to basically trick the secure processor into thinking that it was valid. So one of the things, for example, so he talks about how like if you had physical access before the setup of the seed, so this would be your typical like kind of supply chain attack. Whereas like if I went to Ledger, bought a bunch of them, and then modified them, repackaged them up, and then sold them on like Amazon or eBay. Basically, this attack would allow you to modify the generated recovery seed so that you know what it's going to end up being, and then sell it to somebody. And then somebody puts, however many coins they're trusting with that device, and then you have the seed. Just go back it up now, and they could go. The attacker could steal it at that point. Ralph, feel free to jump in with your supply chain thoughts.
So, all right, this is my take, right? And I feel like everybody, all red team people or anyone who's done a CTF, physical access is king, all right? If you have physical access to the device, you own it. Now, before I get into this, these wallets are meant to try to protect you from a physical aspect attack, okay? And absolutely, what he found is legitimate. It's a true finding, and it needed to be talked about or reported. That being said, supply chain attacks apply to tons of other things besides this wallet. Even though I absolutely agree, this is probably the one where we care about the most, right? And we've actually seen supply chain attacks in multiple different things, including Cisco, where the government was go ahead and throw stuff on their supply chain. Guess what? We got ownership. But in my take on it was like, oh, so you can modify the firmware and then send it to me? No shit, you can do that, right? I didn't feel like it was like an amazing discovery, even though I absolutely recognize that it matters probably the most in this particular device as opposed to like, a Cisco router, right? Even though that is another viable attack. But you can supply chain attack anything, okay? Stuff that you don't even think. The microphone I'm talking on, I could supply chain attack that and put another mic in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. It's just ridiculous what you could do with this.
So the most interesting piece about the Ledger, though, is that their whole marketing campaign is around there not being any anti-tampering at all on the box, on the device. Sure. They basically they send you this little card that legit says a cryptographic mechanism checks the integrity of your Ledger's device internal software each time it is powered on. The secure element chip prevents any interception or physical replacement attempt. Ledger devices are engineered to be tamper-proof. And
I have 100% unhackable system, right?
Yeah,
what was that email company that came out? Either way, right? I have this thing, I give you a card. It's a guarantee. It says you can never hack this. Come on. But
okay. So aside from that, though, let's take it a step further, because this article also talked about a couple other things, other problems with this.
Absolutely.
Right. So we stopped at the supply chain portion of it, but then again, also, there are ways you could secure hardware with like system on a chip, like trust zone, like blowing fuses, like cryptographically sound boot processes and bootloaders, and so this.
Okay, granted, but even companies as big as Apple, who have what I would consider more money than Jesus Christ, and they are even having trouble securing this bootloader, secure enclave thing. And
I don't think so. I would disagree with that. I don't think that they're having a problem with it. I think they're having a problem with jailbreaks, and they have some of that.
Isn't that a problem? Isn't that like the whole point?
When you talk about a hardware and you try to look at the A8s and all these new processors that have been coming out since they introduced like hardware encryption and and in the secure enclave, I mean they're cryptographically sound. Like they blow fuses. They have the user ID or the UID and the GID combined to generate a key bag, and then encryption keys at different levels and full encryption. Like that whole process can't be tampered with. I mean, not saying that it can't be, because I'm sure some nation state could generate an Apple development.
No, and I'm like, I get it, right, from a cryptography standpoint, and I'm not saying that Apple has got some shitty hardware that anyone's just blowing, out of the water, and that's not what I'm saying at all. But I did just read an article recently where a couple companies actually have little boxes you can plug iPhones in that allow them to password guess the PIN.
So they're gray keys. Yeah, it's gray keys. Yeah. But that's okay. Yeah, no, totally get that, but that's a different problem now.
Well, I get it. But I'm just saying, though, that's a physical attack, okay? You have to have the device, and we need to be there. And
not necessarily, because you're missing the one major component to this: social engineering.
Sure.
You get malware on the computer, and you convince them. He put it in his article. It was a pretty good attack scenario, too. It's fairly trivial to pop up a message on a user's computer because of malware or because of phishing or because of something funny, and convince them to do something. And when they plug that baby in and then they push that button, and then the malware is able to interact over USB to that device, you no longer have to have physical access personally. You could do it remotely through a person.
So the vulnerability, in sense, right, is the fact that the hardware does not validate the code that's being put onto it, right? It has no kind of check to make sure that that code is somewhat authentic.
I think that's part of it. I think there was a couple. They were able to extract PIN recovery seed and the passphrases as well, like after the physical
after initiation, right, with the default firmware.
Right.
No, I think on the second one, so the physical access after setup requires an attacker to install a custom MCU firmware that can exfiltrate the private key without the user's knowledge next time they use it. And then the malware was the social engineering piece, right, where you're requiring the user to update the MCU firmware with an infected computer. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not from the point saying that these aren't valid. I absolutely think they're valid. And in fact, I think they're more valid than any other kind of hardware, because the whole point of this thing is to protect you from these exact kind of attacks, right? That's why you buy this thing, okay? I got it.
Well, the other side to it too, though, is you use the example with Apple and compared it to having a hard time locking it down. But you're not talking about basebands and modems and all of the other components that come with a sophisticated smartphone as it relates to this thing has one purpose, and that one purpose is to not do this.
Absolutely. I'll be the first to say that this is bad, not good. And it's totally legitimate, and that a 15-year-old discovered it is even more amazing to the whole story. Even though when I read it, I was like, is this true? Like, I don't know, I feel like this is hype. But touche.
Yeah, so they didn't end up like creating a new firmware for the ledgers that allegedly kind of fixes this problem. And so the thing that I thought was kind of one of the more interesting things is this whole note about like responsible disclosure and how he actually went about contacting Ledger. It sounds like it was kind of like a shitstorm. So he basically says that he was not paid a bounty by Ledger because their responsible disclosure agreement would have prevented him from publishing this report. So think about that. Like I guess I can maybe understand like if there is some sort of like, like they wanted to prevent black hats from learning about how to exploit this. But,
no, that's not what it was. It was saving face because they spent so much money on their marketing campaign that they didn't want to lose. I'm not saying that's really the case. I don't really know. I don't really pay attention to too much of what Ledger does, but I'm a huge enemy of certain disclosures that I'm not going to get into because I don't want people to judge me. But yeah, so this dates back to the 90s. I mean, back in the day, there was a war on full disclosure, non-disclosure. It wasn't even coordinated disclosure, and so I tend to side to one of them really strong, especially after I've had some run-ins with really large companies for no reason, just because little old me.
Right. Well, all right. So he actually links to the CEO of Ledger's Reddit post talking about this. So just listen to like these first couple of lines from the CEO of Ledger. He says, "This is massive FUD, and such thread should be removed. I won't remove it, however, because it would create the opposite effect. The security researcher in question is greatly exaggerating the he said criticity, but I think he meant like criticality of the issue he found. I can't unfortunately go in the details because good practice require to patch before sharing more information. I don't understand his publicity stunt." Like, really, dude? I mean, this kid, he's 15 years old and he found some pretty legit shit.
Yeah, and not just did he find it, the process of which he had to go and undertake in order to do what he did in learning and researching and understanding architectures and understanding hardware. And this isn't, what does he have to, I mean, clearly if he's capable of doing what he did, he's not having a hard time finding a job. So what would you need to raise? That sounds like just an attack. It almost sounds like he's trying to, it's a logical fallacy. He's trying to go after the disclosurer's reputation in order to discredit him from what he's put out there. I think that's
like horrible. Look at the timeline of disclosure. He disclosed this in November 11th of 2017. And he officially reported it to the CTO of Ledger, and the vulnerability was determined to be implausible.
And I'll tell you, he's nicer than I am.
Yeah, I don't agree with the implausible statement by any stretch of the imagination. That's ridiculous.
Oh, by the way, look at the very last line of that disclosure timeline. Firmware update for Ledger Blue unreleased at time of writing. So this is potentially still there. Yep, for Ledger Blue.
So we should weaponize it, was what you're saying, to really show the impact.
Signing up for my Amazon resale account immediately.
Actually, I was thinking about that. If you just found all the places where the Ledger's not sending them and then signed up as if you were really the Ledger and then just started forking these things.
It's like the Twitter retweets, right? Ledger with a space at the end or something. I don't know.
Yeah. My series 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
So the second part of this was that he also reported vulnerabilities to Trezor. So in February, he discovered a vulnerability in the memory write protection operations of the STM32F205 processor, which is the Trezor 1 is the model, Trezor 1. So the ST microelectronics chip used in the Trezor 1 device contains a flaw which effectively disables the write protection employed to protect the bootloader of the device. So it's an unexpected, undocumented behavior of the chip. And so similar process, but apparently Trezor was a lot more willing to fix it.
Now, something we talked about too with supply chain attack, right? So the Trezor has a security tape on the box, right?
Yes.
So when you buy it, you can see if somebody's opened it or not. Okay. Now, am I saying the security tape is 100% foolproof? No, but it is a level of security, right? It's a layered security. Whereas the other wallet in question here, the Ledger, supposedly doesn't need the security tape because it is foolproof and 100% hackable from a physical aspect. Yeah,
Right.
maybe they should put tape on there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, so the other thing too is I don't think the ledger is like glued together. Like I think you could probably like pry it open without there being much mess. Whereas the Trezor like says it has like industrial strength glue, you know, like actually gluing the thing together. So like
so I mean, I've bought a couple of these devices, like the Iron Key, for example. It's epoxied. Okay, so the whole thing is epoxied. Actually, to remove the chip, to do like that whole chip off removal process, which you're doing in a laboratory, which you don't have at your house, but assuming that you do, you do have the ability to actually.
Yes, again.
You're actually going to destroy everything. This isn't going to go out right. Okay, you're going to destroy it all. But yeah.
I actually have a chip off lab in my garage.
Yeah, for epoxy.
Yeah, I have that and for pulling off NAND flash and retinning and putting back
Man, you are my hero.
No, it's not really as much as you think it is. It doesn't take as much effort.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've done it before, but I mean, I just don't have it at my house. That's all. So
if you have a Trezor, update to one that's 6.1.
Yeah, and if you're trying to decide between the Ledger and Trezor, just pay attention to the responses from the company and pick wisely. Yeah,
so on that note, if you look at the actual timeline for Trezor, so the issue was reported by Salim on February 12th. February 13th, they immediately the next day reached out to the processor company. They established contact with them. They had a meeting with them. It took a couple weeks to actually get a meeting with the processor company, so that wasn't Trezor's fault. I mean, that's the processor company that had the vulnerability. And then the next day, like after having discussions with them, they figured out that more of those processes were also flawed. And so they halted production of the Trezors. They resumed production basically 5 days later with a new bootloader, and then informed everyone a few days later. So
again, for the Trezor, it's a supply chain attack, meaning that if you have one right now, it was either compromised before you bought it, right? Or somebody's came into your house at night, grabbed it, changed actually, they would have to have done it before, actually. But yeah, upgrade to firmware, just in case.
Yeah. By the way, you could pull off those seals with acetone. Just inject it with a needle and the seal comes right off, and you could even put it back on so you can tell that it wasn't even removed. So that's the first thing that I want to say. And then the second thing that I really wanted to chime in before we switch gears to the next story is the people that helped Salim edit the articles that he put out was Matthew Green and Ken White, and then Josh Harvey. And if you guys know anything about the crypto, not cryptocurrency, but the cryptography industry, these guys are phenomenal. So the fact that he had industry experts kind of vet what he put out really shines light into this. Just the quality.
Absolutely.
Hats off.
Cool.
Hat tip to you guys. All right, next news story is $20 million in Ether stolen over 2 years. So Slowmist security team observed an automated piracy attack. The attacker used an authentication flaw of Ethereum nodes Geeth and Parity, the RPC API, to maliciously steal tokens via ETH send transaction.
I feel like we talked about this attack before, and maybe we didn't. Maybe we might have been talking about it offline, but it is pretty interesting.
Yeah, so we were chatting a little bit about it before the show, and it seems like basically what the attackers were doing were they were scanning basically all the internet, finding Ethereum nodes, and basically just hitting those nodes constantly with the send transaction command via that RPC API. And then once a user had logged in to their wallet, it would now be unlocked, right, Mike?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's an unlock process that takes place, and since you're interfacing with the RPC client and the RPC client's exposed to the internet, if you constantly hit that client repetitively over and over and over and over, when that unlock happens, it usually has like a default. I think it's like 5 minutes or something, where the unencrypted key will be held kind of like in memory while that unlock duration kind of dwindles down, and if you can catch it at the right time, then you can call that transaction and send ETH back to the attacker.
My question is this the default state of Ethereum wallets?
That's a good question. I think it was older. It might have been older, but whenever you're connecting to a node, I'm not sure if you've ever played with like actually connecting with these nodes like manually. But if you pull it up and you connect, you could actually see the version that they're running as well. So it would be interesting to see. Actually, you know what? We could probably go to Showdown and just check, because you can probably search for port 8546 and 8545 on Showdown, find all of the Ethereum nodes that are out there that he's doing, and then if you connect to them, you could probably just pull whatever version of the wallet that they're running, or whatever version of the node that's there, because it shows that version information there.
Got you. So, I mean, when you start your Ethereum wallet, you're not exposing RPC, are you? I mean, I'm not even talking about from like a full network stack perspective, right? Because you could have, a firewall, all this other fun stuff, right? So you're not going to be exposing that open. But assuming that you have maybe some other kind of NAT forwarding rules, or
Sure.
automatic NAT opening. I mean, is that how the client opens up? I mean, is this automatically? I mean, were these unsuspected clients, or were they just ones that happened to leave the RPC open?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. Some of this stuff we'd have to dig into. We've talked about kind of pulling it out and just doing like a live, let's just hack the things session on Twitch. And we've talked about doing this with this kind of software. So I don't know. I really don't know the answer to it, because I haven't really looked into it too much other than what I just shared.
Yeah. So if you scroll down to like this article's defense advices, like they talk about changing the default RPC port. I guess you can configure that, and then also change the RPC API to listen on an intranet interface as opposed to being publicly available.
Gotcha. So it does sound like it's more like a default configuration issue than that. Okay. And luck.
Well, changing the port will be good, but it doesn't fix it. I mean, you'd really have to set it so it's not listening on all interfaces or whatever it is, whatever's causing this problem.
Yeah, that's an odd thing. I mean, I always wonder how stuff like this ends up on the internet. I mean, like with today's like typical home network setup, like you have like your NAT, right? I mean, you're NATed behind your router, so like they'd have to like open up a port, or have like maybe like a node out on the internet somewhere, like using like a VPS or something.
Or what about like, so this would be an interesting use case, but what if, is there a JavaScript XML RPC client or some like RPC? I know there's XML RPC, but is there an RPC way of communicating with the local? Because if you could trick somebody to go to an attacker-controlled website, execute JavaScript, even though the web server won't be able to interact with the internal IP address, you can convince the local the browser to act as the connection to the client. And that's how you could like port scan internal networks, right? Because if you can put JavaScript on an attacker controlled and get code execution in the browser, then what if you're able to actually interact with the local RPC client using JavaScript? Obviously, it would only be in the context of the client's computer, but that could open a potential new attack vector where all you have to do is get them to click a link. Which could be pretty cool to see in action if it was possible, which I don't know. Like that might be, because Web3.js, that's what that does, doesn't it?
This is, I mean, you're talking about a more advanced attack. I was going to also make a note about the NAT, right? So UPnP or what do you call it, NAT, PMP would also automatically open these ports for you.
Yeah.
If those are set up on the client, through your NAT, right? And a lot of routers have this kind of set up or enabled by default. So, I mean, that is another way, though the actual port as an open, it's going to open it up externally in whatever the application wants it to be. So, I mean, it's definitely possible. Home clients, but the attack that you mentioned with JavaScript, that would be pretty interesting to see.
So Web3.js does that. That's the whole purpose of it, right? It's like it's an RPC client, and that's how like my Ether wallet and some of those interact with the local node running on RPC. It's using Web3.js. If you wanted to send Ethereum through your browser and you wanted to go like to your console and do it manually, or use the Chrome extension, all that Chrome extension is using is the Web3.js, which is effectively the Ethereum component. Now, clearly, you'd have to have that installed, but I'm wondering if there's another way to kind of do it using like the HTTP provider or do something. I don't know. It's interesting to look into. I wish I had more time to spend kind of digging into this stuff.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
Next story, Metaverse hard fork due to vulnerability. So this one I saw and thought was a possible interesting topic generator for our show. So specifically, there's not a whole lot of details surrounding a vulnerability with this. But so Metaverse is a blockchain that has a cryptocurrency called ETP. And on between March 15th at 11 a.m. and March 16th at 4 p.m., they suffered a large-scale coordinated attack. And this resulted them in actually creating a hard fork for this specific blockchain. And so this is basically like the gist of the details that I've found on this. It says that this was a future timestamp attack, and the attacker tampered with the timestamp of the future blocks to reduce the difficulty of mining. By doing this, they were able to give themselves control of the mainnet and mine a large number of ETP for themselves. So the creators of Metaverse decided that due to this vulnerability, they now were like, well, I guess we could either just let this carry out with this attacker controlling our network, or we fork. So the thing that I kind of wanted to bring up is not necessarily specific to this one blockchain, but a more generalized kind of, discussion around what are your thoughts on, when there's new vulnerabilities like this, that let's say tomorrow something came out and it, blatantly was going to destroy something like Bitcoin. Would doing a hard fork make sense to restore what previously was there and protect the network? Is this something that we're going to see more of as new vulnerabilities are, found?
Hard fork everything. Just do it. No, I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily the best solution, right? And getting everyone on board is not as easy, Hey, I've got a new fork and we're going to fix this vulnerability. And other people are going to, everyone's got a stake in the game, right? Well, I've got a lot of miners that's going to mess this up or whatever it may be. So, but that being said, though, that's the way to kind of fix the game. Oh, we're just hard forking. Sorry, we messed up,
Yeah, we talked about the hard fork for Monero not too long ago. I think it was a couple of episodes back, and their point was that they wanted to help prevent some of the ASICs that were hitting the market from destroying, the hash rate for everyone else, and also being able to kind of control the majority of the network hashing power, which is there's kind of a security threat.
It's going to be a Monero Classic. And then,
it's going to be, I think it's Monero V, like Monero V.
Yeah.
I think it's one of them. Actually, I'm not positive that that's like the main chain from Monero, but could definitely look into that. But I don't know. I guess I don't know. I was interested to see like something like this happen, and we kind of saw something with something similar to this with Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, like you kind of just alluded to there with Monero Classic. But whenever the DAO hack happened, they hard forked to get rid of or to restore these stolen coins. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the ramifications of these hard forks yet. I don't think anybody really does. I mean, aside from the upfront loss of support for.
I will say one thing, and I don't know, I mean, I agree. I don't know the ramifications, but I do think we are going to see more of this. As we experiment, we're going to be like, oh, well, we messed up. Moving on, you know what I'm saying? And sometimes that the moving on is going to be the fork, regretfully.
Right.
So that's the downside of an emerging technology.
That's true. Okay. All right. So the next thing is, PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers is starting a blockchain auditing service.
Perfect.
Yeah. It's interesting to see companies like PricewaterhouseCoopers, or actually just more name brand kind of companies hitting this spectrum. So PricewaterhouseCoopers, they want to audit companies' use of blockchain to ensure that it's being used properly, which I don't think there's been a whole lot of details on what that exactly means yet. Could be
checklists.
Like checklists. Could hey, maybe it is like a legit like smart contract auditing.
We need more checklists, guys.
Have you ever been through a PwC audit?
No.
Are they going to audit my new blockchain dating app that I'm coming out with?
No, PwC is a great company, though. I mean, they're one of the big four. So to see them behind this, I mean, that can only mean really good things. I guess all the way around, right? From I wouldn't say security of it, but definitely on the financial transactional side of it, and then accountability towards companies, but that does mean more governmental regulations and stuff. But then also just that's a really good thing, right? If some reputable company like PwC is doing this and believes that they need to be moving into this space, you could derive that there's something good going on with it.
Sure. All right.
Second that emotion.
Yes, we need more people, more companies jumping in. So you're welcome. So hey, Verge cryptocurrency was hacked on social media. So on March 13th, Verge actually got its Twitter account hacked, basically after the lead developer was compromised.
Ah, damn it! I sent coins there. God, I knew this was a freaking scam.
Yeah. So apparently, it was a similar attack that we've kind of seen before with various social media accounts getting broken into, where the attacker in some way figures out the password, which could be password reuse from another site. Maybe they guessed the password, but then
I think this was a phone. I think this was a phone. The two-factor, right? They did the two-factor bypass by doing a phone port, right? Which is another great attack vector. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You were just trying to run.
Yeah, no, that's it. Which we saw that happen with we've seen that a lot actually recently. I mean, a couple years ago, was it like the NSA director got hacked the same way?
CIA, yeah.
CIA, yeah. Got it. I think he had an AOL email account, right?
I think some kids.
In fact, I think that actually they're going to change the standard on that as like a cell phone authentication is not going to be considered a valid second factor, right?
It's been long overdue.
Yeah, and when I say that, I think that's from NIST. Don't quote me on that, but I think that was kind of one of, and not to say that they're like the de facto standard, but somebody has to make a standard, right? And they are pretty big, but Yeah, talking about the fact that we need to move off of this cell phone or being able to authenticate a second factor being a cell phone number, especially because of the porting stuff. So.
There's only one way forward, and getting rid of the SMS doesn't change anything, really. I mean, realistically, it does set it from the more sophisticated attacks like GSM's, the attacks on GSM and all the other weird interception stuff that you could do with like the S7 network. But the reality is, people. I did it today. I'm on a red team, and we basically, I targeted a specific user at the company, and I did it through LinkedIn, and I used Cred Sniper, which is the tool that I put out late last year, and it clones the authentication portal and it clones the two-factor portal. There's no safe two-factor except for hardware tokens, UTF devices. I mean, those are the only way you could do it. I mean, and having a backup eliminates the need for a UTF, because I just say, don't give me the UTF, give me the backup, and they give it to me. and they type it in, and then I log in 30 seconds. Two-factor going forward has to be UTF, and that means we need hardware support and client support and browser support and software support from different companies. And until then,
we also need supply chain security for that hardware support.
Well, I mean, yeah, true.
Yeah,
it's true.
So hey, kids, buy your YubiKeys.
Yeah, get them now while they're cheap. You never know when they're going to be like NVIDIA GPUs.
So one last thing on that Verge story. So the thing that was interesting is right after that attack, so what happened was the attacker basically posted on Twitter saying, hey, donate to this address. And, like the typical Twitter, send me, currency and I'll send you some. Thing that's been going on now for
so often,
and it's gotten ridiculous. Like it's like within minutes, like a doppelganger account pops up, posts like replies to some legit person's tweet, saying, hey, send 0.05 ETH and I'll send you 5 ETH or something like that. And then the thing that's blowing my mind is like how crazy the bots are set up for this now. They have like people responding to those that are like, oh, thanks so much for this awesome deal. It worked right away.
They get a chain of them. There's like 8 to 10 messages at times.
And they spike it. So like they pound the likes. So like it looks like a legit tweet.
Yeah, they go, I mean, this is like a perfect solution for Fiverr. Go pay $5 and get like 10,000.
So when that happened, Verge, like the cryptocurrency, dropped 5%. So we've gotten to a point now where we are in a world where currencies, or alleged currencies, right, or anything that has an actual monetary value can be manipulated due to a hack and the fact that it looks bad for that company or that currency. It's interesting to see that. I mean, I guess we kind of see similar stuff with like the stock market, right? Like with with a breach happening, you see stock prices drop. So, but I mean, I don't know. Like, do you see that with like a Twitter account getting hacked? Do you see a stock drop if just a Twitter account got hacked?
I mean, maybe. I mean, I do see your point though. It's crazy how fragile and how much damage you can do with just hacking one Twitter account, right?
Well, Twitter has echoes, so
yeah.
You got the bloggers, you got all the news outlets. I mean, they're going to Twitter to get real-time news and trying to be the first to put it out. So it does have like a compound effect.
Yeah, definitely interesting. So Coinbase had a really epic bug bounty that just happened. This one is really interesting. So if you were quick about it, or if you knew about this, you could have made a lot of money off of this vulnerability. So the popular exchange Coinbase basically suffered from a flaw in its Ethereum smart contract setup, which made it possible to reward yourself with virtually infinite sum of Ethereum. So if a wallet's transaction and the smart contract fails, all transactions before that will be reversed. But on Coinbase, these transactions will not be reversed, meaning a person could add as much Ethereum to their balance as they want.
So hold on, what's the bounty and why does it matter?
So I mean, he got awarded $10,000, which is
sure, that's not bad.
Yeah, not bad. But
Easy day's work.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one, though. I mean, seeing
He probably double dipped.
Yeah, exactly. Like transferred a couple ETH. Oh, look, I had to prove it worked.
Right.
No, I don't know.
I'm not saying that happened.
I know.
That's bad. Don't do that, please, kids. Be responsible and disclose it. Get your reward potentially, or not. I mean, hey, it could be like Salim, and just hey, maybe they have a policy they don't want you to post about it. You don't have to take the money. You can post about it and become an internet hero like Salim did.
I was just going to say, you said be responsible and disclose it, but sometimes being responsible means not disclosing it. It's an ethical dilemma.
Confucius is wise.
If the company does, well, if the company doesn't want to patch it and they're not going to patch it and they don't want you to say anything about it, then people are left vulnerable. And so therefore you disclosing it to the company actually made the people that are vulnerable maintain their vulnerability.
Yeah, do the right thing.
But you decide what the right thing is. Don't let people tell you what the right thing is.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. You live your life.
So the answer is it's up to you. I mean, don't disclose or do disclose. One of those two is going to happen if you find a vulnerability.
But if you do disclose, full disclose.
Yes.
You know what? We're not telling you anything here. You know what? Both sides of the coin. It doesn't fucking matter.
There ain't no party like a 0-day party.
This is what happens when we do this at night.
Yeah, exactly. Either way, very cool and a decent bug bounty for this. Even though the actual exploit itself, you could have made a lot of coin out of. Now,
So
my question is,
he chose to be a $10,000 versus a multi-billionaire.
Yeah, I mean, do you think he could have got away with it? I mean, maybe. I'm not saying he couldn't, but
it's immutable.
Yeah, that's true. Oh no, they're gonna fork it. They were gonna fork.
Ethereum Cash.
Yeah. Please, we need another cash.
The funny thing about this takeover, though, is it was a critical 9 of 10, right?
So what's a 10?
I don't know. So I was wondering. Unless it's like just the category. Maybe it's like 9/10, like 9.
Oh, okay.
Like it's in a category of its own.
Gotcha.
10 just means you get all the private keys for Coinbase's Ether. I don't know. That's it. So,
Did you see the date that this company disclosed to at 4:52 a.m.?
That's the only time that you get publicly disclosed that.
Oh, he's probably delirious. What do I do? Do I disclose it?
Do I do it, or do I just take the coins? I think it's
too late. I hit the button.
Nice. All right. So there's some malware leveraging web injects on cryptocurrency sites. So this is really similar to the typical kind of banking attack that we've seen for years, where malware basically tries to kind of like manipulate the website that you're logging into. I mean, I know. So I used to work at a credit union. I used to see this all the time, where basically malware would try to mimic basically just the web portal that a user would log into to go do online banking. So same thing now, kind of translated to the cryptocurrency world. So there's two different botnets, the Zeus Panda and Ramnet malware families that are after Coinbase.com and blockchain.info wallets. And on Coinbase, basically the malware made it look so that like if you were to type in your email and password, the enter key wouldn't work, but generated like a new button that superimposes over the sign in button that basically stole credentials. And like it's interesting to see kind of like similar old tactics translating over to new stuff like cryptocurrency.
So is this clickjacking? Is that what web inject is?
That's a good question.
Because that's what it's. I mean, clickjacking is when you're like readdressing an HTML page to do something. That's what it sounds like. I just wonder.
I know it sounded kind of similar to some of the stuff you did with Cred Sniper too. Like they were stealing 2FA tokens.
I didn't do it.
Right. I mean, it sounded eerily similar to something I'd heard about before.
Yeah, but Cred Sniper phishing pages are like super legit, and these don't look very super legit.
They messed up some spelling. It's just part of the process.
Yeah, so I don't think it specifically calls out clickjacking in here. Could be though.
I just wonder when web injects targets banking information for wire fraud, is what it was saying. Mostly the need to log in before time expiration of two-factor. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, we can move on. So yeah, because we're kind of getting low on time here, aren't we? I think we've actually gone an hour already.
Whoa.
Wow, that went by fast, man.
Goes by fast.
So you guys want to talk about this last one real quick?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So there's been new research that's been circulating recently. It's been in all the major news companies. It's been all over the place, basically saying how there's potentially illegal content in the Bitcoin blockchain. Specifically, the thing that everyone's worried about is illegal pornography, such as child porn.
Oh, gosh. I just read this article. It says, if you own Bitcoin, you could also own child porn. It sounds like, honestly, like an info commercial, like, don't buy Bitcoin. Yeah. This could be child porn. You are helping the society, decay.
So let me read just this quick statement. This is from the actual research paper. It says, our analysis shows that certain content, for example, illegal pornography, can render the mere possession of a blockchain illegal. Our analysis reveals more than 1,600 files on the blockchain, over 99% of which are text or images. Among these files, there is clearly objectionable content such as links to child pornography, which is distributed to all Bitcoin participants. Now, so that last part is not entirely true, right? Like distributed to all Bitcoin participants, because like if I have like a non-full node wallet, I don't have the full blockchain. But provided that you have a full node, you do have the full blockchain. So let's dig into that a little bit, because I've found some contradictory statements that kind of go along with this too, that make it not so, black and white, I guess. So there was actually another research paper done in July of 2017 titled "The Data Insertion in Bitcoin's Blockchain" that it basically explored the topic of like hiding data in the blockchain. And so they first started off by talking about the Coinbase. So the Coinbase, not the company, like the exchange Coinbase, but the Bitcoin Coinbase. So the Coinbase data, it's arbitrary and can be up to 100 bytes in size. So first off, only miners have the ability to actually insert data into it. And it's typically used to signal mining support for proposed protocol changes. There are 5 other ways in which data can be encoded on the Bitcoin blockchain. So, and the one that the whole new research paper is kind of calling out is this op_return option, that it's basically at the center of the whole child pornography story. And the op-return function can only store 80 bytes. So, I mean, first off, you're not going to store like pictures.
It's a pretty big image.
Yeah, right.
So it's a link to an image, but does that mean that you're distributing child porn? If I like encode an image on a dollar bill and then start giving it around, are we all contributors to child pornography?
I guess that's the challenge. I've seen before where they were. I don't know if it was Bitcoin. It was where was it? It was some peer-to-peer, but they were doing virus signatures to trigger AV, endpoint AV. I forget what it was. Maybe it might have been Bitcoin a while back, but they would just take
like throwing an iCar out there or something.
Yeah, like an iCar and a message transaction, and then iCar would trigger the endpoint AV and then kill the process, and they were disrupting it that way.
Interesting.
So, I mean, the argument is a text string, which is a URL link to a website displaying a thing, is not the thing, right? I mean, just because you have a URL in the blockchain that might lead to something else that may be bad does not mean that you're necessarily distributing that bad thing.
Correct. Yeah, I would say that's correct. But when you look at other blockchains like smart contracts or dApps from Ethereum, where you could actually store data, I could see how that becomes a bigger problem.
Sure.
Especially if that contract.
How do you delete it? How do you remove it?
You can't. And the worst part about that is I could see some of the bigger blockchains that allow you to store more data outside of the Bitcoin having this, being more susceptible to this problem. Because if you took a little image and stored that binary data, that could be, I don't know, that would definitely interfere with some things. That's why we can never have good things.
Yeah, exactly. That was my point. You can never have good things because everyone's got to ruin it for you, We got something cool that comes along and it was like, you know what? We're going to fuck this up. Child porn. Here we go.
So back to the hard fork thing. Like, I actually saw a conversation about, like, would you be open to hard forking because of this?
It's a cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
And I mean, so from what I understand, it's all encoded anyway. It's not like it's like blatantly like just a URL that's going to pop up on like some kid's screen, Like, I mean, first off, it's in the blockchain. Like you literally have to sift through like all transactions ever. There's a number here, 251 million transactions. 251 million.
But that's not how it works though, man. I mean, it's the content that's on that machine and just having it on there. I mean, I know you say it's encoded, but really what is data anyway?
True. All
data is binary data. It's just all about how the data structure is interpreted and by what programs are capable of interpreting it. Right. But at its core, it's just a bunch of bits that are set or not set. And it's the storage of those bits that lead out to the legal content that makes it's those bits in certain orders that constitute whether or not you're guilty of having possession or not.
Interesting.
It's kind of crappy too because this was out there either way, right? Regretfully, obviously, with child porn, it's horrible, but it's out there, and whether it's on the blockchain or not, they're just like, oh well, that's another place we could put a little link, and that nobody can delete it. You know what I'm saying? That's why we can't have nice things.
This is an interesting problem. This is really an interesting problem. I mean, I don't like the story, and I definitely don't like ending the night on the story.
Yeah,
because it's such a downer.
We can talk about other stuff too.
It's such a downer, but the reality is there is an open threat here, and I think that it would be interesting to try to start addressing these types of problems before they get out of hand.
Yeah, so the other thing too
is your point with the hard fork.
Not only just like, so the child porn thing, like, all right, so like let's say that makes it illegal for you as a, like, I don't know, a human being to own it, right? That's bad. But all right, so like what if it wasn't child porn? What if it was like the latest like massive nation state leak or something? Like let's say like Edward Snowden decided to leak everything on the blockchain somehow. Like would that signal a point for a government to try to destroy whatever blockchain that is in any way they possibly could.
My question is not whether it's signal. How would you do it? How would you destroy it?
Yeah.
Well, they would destroy it by going after the individual people and making it illegal to do, right? So, and as a government has their responsibilities to do whatever they got to do in order to stop it, right or wrong, whatever side of the fence you stay on. That's another personal decision that nobody should judge you for. But the reality is they do have an objective, and sometimes they use their authority to do it the wrong way, and sometimes they do it the right way. Nonetheless, they have an obligation to do whatever it takes in order to stop and in order to protect or whatever service that they're serving, right?
So you're saying that America becomes China, we build a Great Wall because other countries are not going to follow that. I didn't say that.
No, that's what you just said. I said you can decide on where you stand on it.
Okay.
I'm just saying whatever side you decide to stand on, that they're more than likely going to do whatever they have to do in order to kind of nip that in the bud. And if that means making it illegal to have possession of the blockchain, then you know what's going to end up happening is the blockchain does a fork, and then the clients no longer store the whole blockchain on the individual computer. They only store bits and shard it up, and collectively they have the full shard, so that nobody ever has the full ledger on their machine, and then they kind of bypass it that way. So there's always going to be a cat and mouse thing, I think, but there's probably technology advances that we can come up with that kind of nips this type of stuff before it gets to that point, which is kind of back to a solution. We need to find a solution.
Yes, we do. So, you're right. We can't end the night on that note. It's terrible. So, I guess there is one last thing I guess we could kind of chat about. So last week we had talked about, basically this thing called the crypto hex, which is a device that they're selling on Kickstarter that you basically carve in your seed. And Ralph and I were kind of tossing around the idea of like what if you could just like encrypt your seed and with a passphrase. And so one of our listeners was actually listening to the podcast and wrote me a message. He's like, "Hey, dude, by the way, like here's this thing that Trezor put out." So they put out like the ability to they have like I guess a tool that will allow you to create a 25th seed word that will basically encrypt your wallet or your seed, I should say.
And that's not what you put on that little metal steel thing that you bury in the ground.
No, definitely not. Yeah, just the seed word. That's what you put.
just that. Those other 24 words, not important.
Yeah. So for anyone listening, we'll throw those links in the show notes for this week. That way, if you're interested in doing that, you can check it out.
Buy a Bitcoin, build a time capsule, put those seed words in there, unbury it in 20 years, and thank me later.
I love this advice. That needs to be on a shirt.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that'll come back to haunt me.
Cool. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure. I think we've definitely gone over our time this week, but hey, it's fun. I mean, we had some good stories.
Awesome.
Next week we'll have to if anyone's listening and has a good informational topic they'd love to hear about or hear us talk about at least, shoot me a message on Twitter or through our email. So our email is at info@coinsecpodcast.com. Go follow us on Twitter. We need more followers. Come on, guys. Spread the word about the CoinSec podcast. We're trying to reach
your friends,
the masses.
Tell your wife. Tell your wife's friends. I mean, they love this stuff.
Yes.
They're huge.
And keep an eye on coinsecpodcast.com where all the show notes are going to be. Go subscribe to the podcast. And hey, while you're there, go ahead, leave us a review. Let us know what you think about it. Because hey, we want to know how we can improve, what you like, what you don't like. It'll be helpful and maybe, make better episodes in the future. So anyways, thanks guys. Ralph, Mike, thank you guys so much for joining me, and we shall see you next week.
See ya.
Later, guys.